Thank you guys for still hanging out with us at 5:15 on a Friday afternoon. I did not expect this, so I appreciate your guys' persistence. And I promise we have 25 minutes. We have way too many slides for 25 minutes. Plus, we want the other two fine people on the stage to do the panel. So buckle up. We're going to do this quickly. Let's talk about video gaming and why it's the defining consumer medium of our time. Is this working? No. Next. Nope. There we are. All right. So back 22 seconds. This is the amount of time it took for fashion house Burberry to sell out an entire collection of limited edition characters, 750 to be exact, alongside a virtual clothing collection inside of a video game called Blankos. They made over $225,000 in revenue in 22 seconds, but more importantly, they opened up the connection for continuous engagement and the ability to actually reach and engage a consumer demographic whose shopping journey doesn't start in the city center, it doesn't start in the physical store. It starts online, and specifically, it starts within video games. The money that's being spent in these places is real. Just to give you one more example, this number is real. There was a person in a game's Counter-Strike on a limited edition gun that spent $1 million on a virtual weapon. So yes, that's an outlier, but the money is real and the engagement is real. And the point for companies and organizations, if we're thinking about how to be relevant with the modern day consumer, you have to meet consumers where they're at. And you'll find them playing video games. And it's even people like good old Tommy Hilfiger, who's woken up to this. His company's in video games, and they actually make their own video games. And he says any industry can leverage games as a dynamic platform for storytelling, product placement, and consumer engagement in ways traditional media can't match. And I would actually take it one step further and say that gaming is in fact your new business model. So let's walk through that, what that means. One, we're dealing with radically changing consumer expectations. People want personalization, people want real-time interaction and real-time feedback from the brands that they're interacting with. Let's look at some more evidence. The teal line is traditional media consumption. The purple line is digital media consumption. The key driver behind that, video games. They're on opposite trajectories. More evidence. People are canceling their TV subscriptions in droves. On the flip side, you have 84% of all internet users that are playing video games. More evidence. TV the problem? People, especially young audiences, spend 3 times more time in gaming environments than on all social media channels combined. So why is this not obvious? It's because of this. Every conversation that we tend to have with business leaders starts with, well, but games is for 18-year-old dudes in the basement with neon lights and a Red Bull can that are playing shooter games. No. That was the prevailing stereotype that was somewhat accurate, not entirely, 20 to 25 years ago. It's no longer accurate. These people exist, but it's a sliver of the population because this is the reality. You have close to 3.5 billion people that play video games almost daily. It's the only medium that cuts across all demographic cohorts on Earth. To put this into context, this is bigger than the populations of China and India combined. This is bigger than any religion we've ever had on planet Earth. Everybody plays. There's real money in it. The industry is roughly $200 billion. It's bigger than music, film, TV combined. 57% of every gamer out there has spent money on or inside a live video game. This is one of my favorite statistics. 86% of people who purchased a virtual item inside of a video game proceed to buy the corresponding physical item. Show me one other digital channel with an 86% conversion rate to offline. So the question is why? What makes games so powerful? It's the power of play. It's the underlying loops that are sending people on an action. There's a reward, there's instant feedback that you're getting. You're making that investment, and that loop is perpetual. So what does that mean? People always ask me, well, you talk about immersion and that video games are immersive. When I'm on my couch in the evening and I'm looking at TikTok or I'm doing this on my Instagram feed for 2 hours and I forget about time, I feel pretty immersed. That's not immersion, that's your brain on autopilot. It's very different. So the fundamental difference is, while social media, traditional TV is a passive experience, it's one-directional, video games are bi-directional. They don't work if we don't participate. It's action-reaction, and that's what creates flow states, and that's creates immersion. So the proof is in the pudding, and these are the numbers. Your average social media post gets about 1.3 seconds of engagement, while your average branded experience on Roblox gets about 11 minutes of experience. So if you're a marketing executive, if you're a brand leader, if you're thinking about corporate strategy, innovation strategy, where are you going to put your money? So despite all this evidence, this is the reality. Gaming as an industry, it gets all the attention, it gets all the engagement, it gets all the monetization, and it gets a whooping 5% of the global advertising market. 5%. The rest is spent on everything else. So this is interesting because 20 years ago, there was another medium that was at the exact same stage. All the attention, all the engagement, monetization was starting to happen, and it wasn't getting advertising dollars. Anyone want to take a guess which medium I'm talking about? Louder. Social media, exactly. We all know how that played out over the last 20 years. Out of the $733 billion on the bottom, social media gets almost $430 billion in ad spend. So that's the opportunity that's unlocked. Gaming should be obvious, but it's not obvious yet. And it's a massive wave that's about to come crashing down on every brand and organization out there, because that's where people are spending their time, and it's the most effective way to engage people. So what does that opportunity look like? One, games are marketplaces. 2024, there was $15 billion and more that were generated just via selling virtual goods alone. So they're real marketplaces. Two, gaming is where relationships live. We're going to start talking a little bit more about what games mean in the cultural context. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about this a little bit too. People go there to establish connection, to be social, and to hang out with friends. Three, games drive real-world purchases. Back to that 86% conversion rate. So how do we do that, and what are some companies that are doing this really successfully already? In my book, I talk about 4 distinct strategic pathways, and I promise we're not going to turn this into a university lecture and not go into super great detail here because it's late for you guys. But at a very high level, very simple. You can integrate with games that already exist. You can build your own games. You can leverage Web3 technology to do so because it opens up the ability for marketplaces, or you can make a game become a part of your product. Some of my favorite examples across this: Chipotle did a Roblox experience called the Burrito Maze, Boo with 2 O's, because it was for Halloween, fan favorite holiday. That game resulted in 2 things. One of the best digital sales days that Chipotle ever had. They were selling real burritos after this. They handed out $1 million in free burritos in 10 minutes. 2, one of their top enrollment days for their loyalty program, all driven from a game on Roblox. The New York Times is obviously a very relevant example to this context here. The New York Times Games app now has, I think, 12 games inside of it. It's the core driver of all of their digital revenue growth. It's the core driver of their subscription growth. And what's profound is people that come first through that entry point that is the Games app engage more with news content, engage more with all of the other content, to the point where the Times changed its old slogan from the 40s and 50s, where it used to be people come for the news and they stay for the game when it was a crossword puzzle. They changed it to people come for the games and they stay for the news. Puma is another really good one. It's a standalone game on Roblox where they were promoting and actually selling new items, including a new football boot. And Peloton, a fitness company, hardware, bikes, Peloton bikes, treadmills, rowing machines. Their #1 workout content on a Peloton bike is a video game called Lane Break. So it simulates your bike workout. As you're pedaling your Peloton bike, you're not having an instructor yell at you to go faster, which is a very pleasant experience, obviously. You're playing a video game. More than half of all workouts globally on a Peloton bike are done inside of this video game. Those people come back for more workouts per week, and those workouts are longer. This is one of my, by far, favorite examples. Adidas is one of the companies who's been doing this for the last 5 years already. They were early, and they are ruthless in how they're executing this. They're active in all of those quadrants, to the point where Adidas is, at least to my knowledge, the only Fortune 1000 company that has a dedicated business unit that only focuses on selling virtual goods in digital environments. It has its own P&L, dedicated revenue stream, budget, everything. And I think it's actually the most profitable business unit that Adidas at the moment has. So make no mistake, all of this sounds great, and it is great, and it's absolutely worth pursuing. Making games is incredibly hard. Take a look at Disney. I would argue that Disney is probably the most iconic storytelling company that we have or we've ever had. This is Disney's journey over the last 30 years with video games. It looks like a perfect bipolar relationship that you might want to get out of. It's up and down and up and down, and it's like they can't make up their mind. And it's not that they're bad at this, it's just making games is incredibly hard. And to this very day, the best game that was made, best Disney game, with Disney IP, was Marvel Rivals, and it wasn't made by Disney. It was made by a small studio at that time. They had 70 people called Second Dinner. That's how hard this is. But it's worth it pursuing. And what this actually means is back to this, you've seen the different companies from a fast-moving goods consumer company, whether it's Adidas or Chipotle, to a publishing house like The Times, to a fitness company like Chipotle. There's other examples where technology companies, my former employer back in the day, BCG, made a video game for its clients and its consultants. This really stretches and touches all the different industry sectors, and we'll talk in a minute about why that is. But just to give you some inspiration, if that might be relevant for your company that you're leading, or your job when you go back to work, etc. When you're on the wholesale side or IP owners, you could think of games as your new wholesale. You have the ability to test different IP, new shoes, 3D renderings in those environments much, much faster at a scale that's unprecedented. You don't need the physical warehouse to do that anymore. You don't need to have 10 sneakers that you're making physically to show to people. You do 3D renderings, you drop them in Fortnite, and you look at the engagement of 80 million people globally in real time and start to make decisions around what you want to pursue. Banking is one of my favorite topics. Video games can be your new branch. It's the interaction point where a lot of these consumers are going to have their first exposure and their first interaction with what is traditionally a bank and that touch point. They're not going to go down the street and look at the branch that's there physically. Their touch point's going to be there. So there's a plethora of opportunities. And the foundation to get all of this right is don't make it about yourself. When you go in those gaming environments, don't make it about you as a brand. I know that's tempting. There's a lot of legacy. All of the brands are really important, and they are. You have to make it about the player. It's about the audience. So you have to invest in really deeply getting to know the needs and the desires of that audience. You have to do soul searching, because what do I stand for as a brand? What are my brand values? And you have to make those two ends meet. That is what creates authentic experiences. If you can't show up in gaming environments in authentic ways, it's better to not show up at all. Because when people are in a state of play, the amount of rejection that you're going to get from people when they feel like they're, pun intended, being played is exponentially greater than when they're in another state. So what do I mean by getting to know people really intimately? These are the types of insights that companies are normally making these decisions on. High-level demographic data, maybe some behavioral data. Who wants to take a guess at who those two people are? Come on. Nailed it. And the Prince of Darkness. Rest in peace, Ozzy. So obviously, both of them are royalty. Both of them are demographically identical. I think we can all agree that these are very, very different people. So find ways to actually connect with and get to know the human being behind the player. Because the human being is not the year that they were born in, and it's not whether they were raised in the United Kingdom or another country. So put that work in. One of my, we're not going to talk about all of these different points, but I always get asked, well, what's the number one piece of advice? If I had to summarize this and how you start on this journey internally within your organization, it'd be the following. Recruit the willing and the curious. Don't go with the knee-jerk reaction of this person has the title, hence this is the project that they have to lead. No. If people have an innate desire and curiosity to work on these topics, they're probably already playing the games that are relevant to you. They're going to go check out other games. They're going to be in Reddit. They're going to be in all the subreddits. They're going to understand the culture. And they're going to come back with way more valuable insights than normally you would get out of this process that are going to really accelerate your journey there. So that's my number one. We made it just in time. I've never done this in 15 minutes, so hopefully this wasn't too fast. Please join me on stage, and thank you guys for being here.
much, Bastian. There's one, it's fascinating, you know, how in particular also established brands discover gaming for themselves, right, as an important channel. There was one other example in your book about Burberry. Maybe you talk about that, because that is also remarkable.
It's a great example, because you wouldn't, you know, instinctively go to, well, how do you go from selling a, I don't even know what they cost, €3,000 or dollar trench coat to a video game that teenagers play where they normally buy an item for maybe $2. Like, it's that juxtaposition. But I think the reality that Burberry and others are facing and are waking up to, that consumer that you, depend on to make revenue with, make money with, now they still go to the stores. Right now, those touch points still work, but that consumer is aging out more and more and more, and you have to think about, well, where's that new consumer coming from? And right now, their challenge is they don't even have an interface. They don't even, you know, these people don't even know a lot of times that Burberry exists and where to go, and they're not going, I'm gonna look for my trench coat. Maybe they don't even want or need one, or believe they need one, and they're certainly not gonna go into the city center to check out a store. So it's really about flipping the script and going from, well, where do we have to go as a brand to meet the consumer that we want to reach and engage with? Well, where are they? And those are the environments that they're spending most of their time and their attention in.
Thank you. We have, together with the Unternehmertum and Venture Labs, launched a gaming incubator. There's a booth in the main hall, you know, with all the information about it. And this is also why I'm so happy to have Johanna with us this afternoon. You are the newly appointed professor for gaming at the Technical University Munich. So gaming has also, a science relevance. And you have also written a very interesting book. I think we have copies left at our booth as well. And you know, Johanna, what role does sort of gaming play in society, right? Because, you know, you touched upon it. Some of these, obviously, you know, fighting games, etc., have a, you know, very bad reputation. But then, you know, Bastian has shown us, you know, what relevance gaming can have and what different image it can have. So, what sort of, what can you share, you know, from your work and your perspective?
Thank you so much for having me and for tackling this topic, because it's such an important topic for all of us. Because as we already saw in the statistics, pretty much everyone is a gamer these days. And if you look at the statistics, you showed some of them, those stereotypes is, I think, the most important thing we need to get rid of. Because if I still ask people, if you think of a gamer, who would you imagine? It would be this boy full of pimples, eating pizza, playing World of Warcraft in the basement. But in terms of statistics, it's exactly me. Mm-hmm. Female and age above 35-ish, 70. And so this is something we need to rethink. And to answer your question, games is one of the most complex medium in the world. If you think of games, there's so much negative press often about games as a medium, and it's still not part of the culture or of the arts part of the press, even though games is Tetris on the one hand, and then a rich story game like The Witcher, where you have so many writers thinking of a very intense story. Artists, Assassin's Creed, which might be known, just won a Grammy for the game music. This is really brilliant artists making the music in the background. So games are art, games are culture, and the games medium is extremely complex. So it's from small games, from indie games, tiny games, to those giant production. But of course, also, there are good games and there are bad games. Same like books. Not every book will teach you something. The same is true with games. And there are so many cool games out there who are now being built for the different target groups. Games for elderly, for instance, because there are some studies showing that it might be good to fight things like dementia. So it's also something super social. It brings together different generations. Most of us play actually with others. And this is, again, such a very interesting medium, not only to play and be entertained, which is also fine, but also to learn something, to take different perspectives, to learn empathy. And you see I'm excited, I think.
Yes, you clearly are. And you know, the university recently hosted what they call Game Jam. Yeah. And that was over, 40. Where's the game jam? Here, exactly. Here are a few, and they had, 100. I think over 42 hours. Keep me honest, guys. I think it was over 42 hours. They had above 130 students, and then they had, in the end, they had produced 30 games, and we have actually the four winners. We have actually up there as well. You can test and play it. But I think what this shows you is that, obviously, with the new tools in place, every player is sort of moving from being a gamer to a creator. I think that's also something that obviously opens entirely new opportunities.
This is so nice. When we look back in the times of the internet, or how this started off with Web 1.0, basically, where some, like a little portion of the world were creating content and a large portion was actually consuming. It changed. So first came social media. You already mentioned that trend of the past. But actually, where it was so obvious that more and more of us wanted to be part of it. Create our small little home pages in Facebook, make now super nice pictures and share them on Instagram, create own videos on TikTok or on YouTube. And now we want to be TV broadcasters on Twitch. Everyone can have their own private channel. So why should I watch linear TV anymore if I can directly talk to the TV host on Twitch? And now, of course, games. With the new tools, there's so much research going on, combining AI, generative AI, but not only generative AI, to create 3D environments, adaptive environments, and there's so much going on. I always say that also looking into the games industry is looking into the general innovation and future. There's 100%. So much going on which is relevant in the industry, and generative AI in the realm of 3D and livable interactive worlds, that's super relevant.
If I can just, you're bringing up two really, really important points. This gaming as the window into the future. Does anyone remember which industry NVIDIA started in? Graphics cards for gaming. So they were like, we want to make the best graphics cards. Where do people bend and flex graphics the most? Games. Great. If we can do it there, we can do it anywhere. Unity, Unreal Engine, it's the same thing. It's those engines that are used to build these really complex, rich worlds that are now used to train, vehicles in autonomous driving environments. Surgeons are being trained in those worlds to perform surgeries, open heart surgeries, before they actually do it with the patients. I think it's really important to pay attention to what's happened technologically within gaming, because that's usually a very good forward-looking indicator for what the other trends that are going to happen. And the other point that you mentioned around UGC, bringing that back to a brand perspective, what's so profound about that is you as a brand in gaming environments, you now have the opportunity to become playable/experiential. Compare that to social media. The Instagram feed, the real estate that Instagram or Meta is giving you, it is what it is. You're dealing with that, period. You're not shaping that in any way, stretch of the imagination. Now you have the opportunity to not only design the entire environment from the ground up if you want to, you let your customers or your consumers be a part of it and shape it together. That creates such an strong emotional bond and connection with what you represent as a company and what you want to put forth, and the actual audience that's in those environments. That is unparalleled.
Bastian, maybe you can help the audience. There is a lot of sort of discussion and sort of talk around sort of Roblox. What's the sort of role of Roblox in the gaming industry?
Well, first they got to get their child safety stuff under control, because they have a responsibility. That's a whole nother TED Talk. Roblox is really important. They just had their best year. It's roughly 150 million daily active users, if I'm getting my numbers right. But what it really is, it's a game and a platform all in one. And I think that's the important part, because people go and play Roblox, but they hang out there, they communicate there, they consume their news there, they go shopping there, they build games for themselves, they build it for others. So it's almost a virtual replica of real life to an extent. But it's also not the only place. Fortnite is almost just as big from a user perspective. There's other platforms like Zepeto and a few other ones. But I think you can't deny Roblox's cultural importance at the moment.
And one last question. We are running out of time. Maybe a little unfair. you showed this chart, 40 billion, I think, was the advertising budget for gaming, and then 700 something. So let's call it a 5% share. Where's that share going to be in 5 years? What's your guess?
30%.
Wow.
I think so, because there's still a lot of it's going to go to chatbots and Gen AI, because obviously search is changing right in front of our eyes and how people are looking for content. So a lot of that's going to get shifted over there. But I think the big unlock for gaming when it comes to that is going to be being able to track and measure downstream effect of, can I actually show true conversion of things within those environments, rather than just, well, we had a really cool campaign and we think we got some brand uplift from it. We think we got some increased brand awareness. At some point, every CFO is going to go to the CMO and say, I appreciate you spending $30 million on Roblox or whatever else, but what have we done with it? And that's important. And it's also important for the gaming ecosystem to be able to put those tools forward and help brands. Because the more advertising dollars you can shift over, the more the industry's going to grow, the more job opportunities are going to be there, the more games we're going to have, the more experiences we're going to have that players can also enjoy. But yeah, I think it's going to grow pretty dramatically.
Thank you so much, Johanna and Bastian, for coming to Munich.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.